What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Ostara, and this is going to be a long video, so let's just get straight into it. There is a lot to cover. So we're just going to start off with, so I went on to, as I always do, LearnReligions.com. I will see if I can find the page that I had, and I will link it below. It will have the links to all of the other pages that I'm going to look at. So it'll be your one-stop shop for everything that I'm going to talk about on this video. So this first one is setting up your altar for Ostara. So basically we're just celebrating the spring equinox here, and this is how pagans and Wiccans do that. So similar to the symbols observed at Easter, like eggs, rabbits, new bulbs of flowers, and seedlings bursting forth from the earth, many pagans embrace these symbols to represent the fertility of spring and incorporate them into rituals and celebratory feasts, as well as their altars. Think about some other items that might represent new beginnings to you personally. If it's the more personal it is, especially representing new beginnings, you might want to put your wedding ring on there. Maybe that signifies a new beginning of I mean, it kind of does represent a new beginning. But yeah, you can sort of put that on your altar. As long as you remember to put it back on afterwards, obviously, so you don't lose it. The more personal the items, the more powerful the energy that will give to your altar. You also need to ask yourself what you want to create for yourself this coming year. What seeds will you plant? What intentions will you set? Obviously, seeds being planted, they're being metaphorical. Could also be literal, but majoritively it's metaphorical. As nature reawakens, we can take advantage of the feeling of rebirth and regrowth each spring. We see this concept reflected around us in the soft green buds on the trees and colourful flower shoots that are beginning to peep out through layers of snow. Obviously, none of this is relevant to the Southern Hemisphere, who is actually coming out of summer into autumn. But I follow the cycle the way that 90% of humanity does. So we're doing Ostara instead of like Mabon, I think it would be. We see it as the sun grows stronger and warmer each day. Sometimes we'll get really lucky and have an unseasonably bright day where we can take off our winter jackets and open the windows, even if it's just for a few hours in the afternoon. As Earth comes back to life each spring, so do we. Alright, so on your altar, you can get colourful. To get an idea of what colours are appropriate for spring, all you have to do is look outside. Decorate your altar in any of these colours. Generally speaking, you're looking at yellows, pale purples, green obviously is a big one, pastels. So if you want to sort of have mainly green going on. Green is kind of the colour for spring. And yeah, you can sort of accent that with pastel purple, pastel pink, pastel blue, pastel yellow. You can liven it up. This is the time to really just make it look like a happy place, because that's what it should be. So try a pale green altar cloth with some purples and blues draped across it, and add in some yellow or pink candles. Could be a way you do that. Altar decor can reflect the theme of the Sabbat. Ostara is a time for balance between light and dark because it's the equinox, so symbols of this polarity can be used. Use a god and goddess statue, a white candle and a black candle, a sun and a moon, a yin and yang symbol. Some altar cloths you can get have your pentagram with the yin and yang in the middle of it anyway. But sort of strengthen that this time with a yin and yang pendant or amulet or whatever you've got. If you study astrology at all, you probably know that the vernal equinox happens when the sun enters the sign of Aries, which is also the first sign of the zodiac, making Ostara one of the more major holidays on the wheel. This is when the sun crosses the equator, just like when we'll see 6 months from now at the autumnal equinox when it enters Libra in September. Thanks to science, there are equal hours of day and night. What does this represent to you? Perhaps it's about balance between masculine and feminine, light and shadow, above and below, inside and outside, whatever. Use Ostara to find your own sense of balance, whether that's spiritual, emotional, mental, or physical. Decorate your altar with things that symbolize your own journey towards inner harmony. These could be gemstones, statues, candles, chakra representations. It could be tarot cards like Law or Temperance, which represent balance. It could be anything. You may also choose to put something like the Fool card on the altar, since Ostara is also a time of new growth and life, and that card does represent new beginnings. You can add potted plants such as, it's got a bunch here, among others, the daffodil, which is the month's birth flower. Lilies is also in there, and we will get to it in a second. A bunch of different spring flowers that you can add to your altar. This is also a time when animals are bringing forth new life too, so you can put a basket of eggs on your altar to symbolize that. Figures of new lambs, rabbits, and calves. You might want to add a chalice of milk or a little pot of honey. The milk represents the lactating animals that have just given birth, and the honey is a long-known symbol of abundance, because obviously bees can make more honey when there's more pollen. Other symbols of the season include caterpillars, ladybugs, and bumblebees, the sorts of insects that you will see in the garden during this time of year. Seasonally appropriate deities. They've just taken a handful from different mythologies here, so you've got Herne, Flora, Gaia, and Attis. If I'm not mistaken, Herne's Celtic, Flora's Roman, Gaia's Greek, and Attis might also be Roman, I'm not sure. Gemstones and crystals such as aquamarine, again being the stone for the month, makes sense. Plus it's got that nice blue-green color to it. Moonstone, especially this year when we had a new moon, not that long ago. And rose quartz. Rose quartz is the love stone, and when celebrating new life, most people also celebrate new love as well. So that's a good one to put in here as well. You may also put a ritual fire in a cauldron or in your brazier. Allow nature to be your guide, find your inspiration there, go for a spring walk, harvest fallen items from the woods or meadows and other areas near your home, and bring them back to place on your altar to celebrate the season. As long as you're not breaking things off of trees, like if it's on the ground, fair game. But otherwise, make sure you're following the take nothing but photographs, leave nothing but footprints creed. It's always a good way to go through that. Alright, if you are celebrating solo, this is how they've got a ritual here for you to follow through. I'm going to try and speed through this so that can be reading for yourself if you're interested. Otherwise, there's a spring rebirth ritual for groups. Earth meditation ritual. This one, we put the basically find a place where you can sit quietly, undisturbed, on a day when the sun's shining, and choose a place where you can connect with everything that Earth represents. So generally going out into a quiet part of the forest, or something like that, where you can just sort of sit undisturbed with trees and nature around you. If you really want to, grounding is also a really good practice for this as well. So making sure that it's somewhere you're going to be able to stand in bare feet to perform this, because that'll help reset your energy. So if you're full of negative energy, grounding is a good way to get rid of that negative energy and bring it back to a balance, which is what this is all about. Okay, let's look at some of the folklore. This is the fun stuff. So the first thing that comes up in the folklore is, for a strange reason, serpents. So what's it say here? Spring is the season of new life, and as the ground warms, one of the first denizens of the animal kingdom we begin to notice emerging is the serpent. While a lot of people are afraid of snakes, it's important to remember that in many cultures, serpent mythology is strongly tied to the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In Scotland, Highlanders had a tradition of pounding the ground with a stick until the serpent emerged. Seems kind of cruel to the animal, but sure. The snake's behaviour gave them a good idea of how much frost was left in the season. Folklorist Alexander Carmichael points out in Carmina Gadelica that there's actually a poem in honour of the serpent emerging from its burrow to predict spring-like weather on the brown day of the bride, and it goes like this. The serpent will come from the hole on the brown day of the bride, though there may be 3 feet of snow on the surface of the ground. Now in this they also put that the bride, or just of bride, is actually the goddess Bridget. Yeah, there's some North American stuff there, Ozarks, Egyptian mythology, pointing out that St. Patrick is famous for driving snakes out of the country, with many people thinking that it's a metaphor for him driving out the pagans, and bringing Christianity to Ireland. Egg magic and folklore here. In many cultures and societies, the egg is considered a perfect magical symbol. It is, after all, representative of new life. In fact, it's the life cycle personified. While many of us take note of eggs around springtime because the Ostara season is chock full of them, it's important to consider that eggs feature predominantly in folklore and legend all year long. In some legends, eggs as a fertility symbol are associated with that other symbol of fertility, the rabbit. How did we get the notion that a rabbit comes around and lays coloured eggs in spring? It goes into Easter Bunny there, obviously. So the notion of the Easter Bunny comes from 16th century German writings, which said that if well-behaved children built a nest out of their caps or bonnets, they would be rewarded with coloured eggs. And that became part of American folklore in the 18th century, when German immigrants settled in eastern US. In Persia, eggs have been planted for thousands of years as part of Nowruz, which is the Zoroastrian New Year. Consumption of the Easter egg has marked the end of Lent in Christianity. They feature quite predominantly, and we are also looking at the pagan festival that Easter comes from. Alright, here we are with the spring flowers. What have we got? Crocus. What is this one? So crocus is used to enhance visions and bring about intuitive dreams. By their very presence, crocus plants remind each of us that even at the darkest points in life, the seeds of happiness and joy live within our hearts. If you're going through a rough time in your life, hold a crocus flower or an image of one in your hand while you're meditating, then simply open your heart and your mind to visions of what you can create. There's the daffodil. Obviously, I've done a whole thing on its meaning, but for this purpose, daffodils are typically found in shades of white, yellow, and even pale orange. The flower is associated with love and fertility, so place fresh ones in your home to bring about abundance. Wear this flower close to your heart to draw love and luck, and place them on your altar during workings related to love, especially if it's in your relationship and you're still trying to figure out how to navigate the waters. Potted daffodil bulbs on your altar for spring celebrations, along with other spring flowers such as forsyths and snowdrops, which is the galanthea, which is January's. We've also got the dandelion, which can be used in divination or placed in a sachet to draw good energy your way. It's also associated with growth and transformation. After all, few dandelion flowers soon turn into hundreds of seeds waiting to travel around the neighbourhood. We've got the Echinacea, also called purple coneflower. It's a garden mainstay, has a bit of magical oomph to charms and sachets. Use it for prosperity-related workings. Burn dried flowers in incense and use on your altar during rituals as an offering to deities. We've got golden seal, hibiscus, hyacinth, lilies, narcissus flowers. The daffodil is part of the narcissus family, so it makes sense that they're here. Tulips, violets. There's a whole host. There's a page specifically for Daffodil Magic and Legends and Folklore, which is good considering that this Sabbath always happens at the end of March, and March's flower is the daffodil. There's a whole one here for the rabbit. In medieval societies in Europe, the March hare was viewed as a major fertility symbol. Magical uses for rabbit energy include protection, good luck, and messages from the underworld. I'm sure you've all heard of a lucky rabbit's foot. And the rabbit is seen as a trickster figure in many Western mythologies, which kind of makes sense why he would hide eggs. Some garden magic as well. Get out there and do some gardening. So we can look here at things like which phase of the moon to plant certain things. Some gardeners swear by the idea. So during the first quarter, you plant crops like spinach, lettuce, cucumber, corn, crops that would bloom above the ground. Second quarter, leading to the full moon. Right. So first quarter is waning crescent to half moon, and then here we're looking at waxing crescent to half moon, and we're looking here at waxing gibbous to full moon. Above ground seed crops like beans, watermelon, squash, and tomatoes. Third quarter, waxing gibbous would be root vegetables like carrots and potatoes, as well as bulb flowers, and in the waning crescent, you would avoid planting altogether. Instead, work on garden maintenance, such as tilling and weeding. There's also Appalachian folk magic, the original tradition when it comes to planting, such as pounding a rusty nail into the northern side of all of your fruit trees to bring a higher yield come harvest time. If you want to grow hot peppers to get really hot, then plant them when you're good and mad about something. Which, I mean, look, if gardening is the thing that calms you down, then make sure you plant your peppers first. For maximum growing potential, have a pregnant friend help you plant beans, and the beans will flourish. Cool. Medieval English folklore says that if you plant daisies, they'll keep the fairies out of your yard. Now, it might sound like you might want the fairies which fairies are more often than not tricksters. And then once they've bloomed, make a daisy chain for your child to keep the fae from leaving a changeling in the child's place. That is something that the fairies have been known to do, is to take your child and leave a changeling in its place. There's a whole bunch of other stuff here. Again, link will be down below so you can read this for yourself. Meanwhile, let's look at the history. In ancient Roman legends, Attis, I was right. The consort of Cybele was born via a virgin birth and resurrected in the spring. The venerable Bede claimed Esther was the Saxon version of a Germanic goddess called Ostara, who obviously this festival got its name from, and many pagans mark Ostara as a time for a renewal and rebirth, which also means that the death card is a card that relates to this Sabbat as well. Yeah, and it's generally the equinox is generally around March 21st. I have to think of the word for a second. It's only written like 12 times on the page in front of me, but I still have to think of it for a second. Yeah, I mean, it's the festival of the spring equinox, and sort of, yeah, celebrated for, you know, a sort of a bountiful spring. Obviously, for farmers more than anyone else, this festival was particularly important because you want your crops to grow nice and strong throughout spring and summer, so that you get a good harvest in autumn, as well as you want all of your livestock to be plentiful in their calving and stuff. And then when Christianity took over, they decided to, because of how important this is to a lot of cultures, especially in like Roman Empire times, a lot of the cultures that they took over the lands of, because they saw different versions of this across the board, they tried to put it all in one basket with Easter, and then related that to the whole life, death and rebirth thing with the resurrection of Jesus. That's a little snippet there. Again, you can read it. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack. Deities of the equinox, Asasaya from the Ashanti, Cybele from Roman culture, Esther from Western Germanic. When they say Western Germanic, I think they're talking about, Western Germanic as opposed to Freya from the Norse. So Western Germanic would be Germany and Denmark. Osiris from Egypt, Saraswati from Hindu. Not a single Celtic god in sight, but this is also usually given to Brigid and Cernunnos, the horned god, who is also sometimes put in at Yule as well, if I'm not mistaken. He sort of represents the wilderness, so with new life coming to the wilderness, makes sense. There's a whole page here on different traditions on how the equinox is celebrated around the world. It just keeps coming, doesn't it? There's one here that just debates whether Esther was a spring goddess or a neo-pagan fancy. One that else, whether or not Easter eggs are pagan or not. There's a page here completely just talking about St. Patrick and snakes. And then at the bottom of that list, that I believe below, you'll see links to Ostara recipes and Ostara arts and crafts, which is more so if you're dealing with children during this festival. Let's look at the recipes. So, hot cross buns are one of them. Obviously here, we are looking here at Wiccan and Paga, so how does a hot cross bun fit into that? During the pre-Easter season of Lent, many of our Christian friends and family members are busily celebrating with hot cross buns. We all know what that is. It's been around for ages. There are a number of English traditions revolving around hot cross buns. One custom says that sailors should take a hot cross bun on their travels to prevent shipwreck. The cross on the bun comes from a superstition that marking the bun would prevent the devil from getting into the baked goods. Interestingly, it's possible that breads with crosses on top were baked by the ancient Greeks, which makes the whole idea pre-Christian anyway. So how could you incorporate a hot cross bun into your pagan belief system? Well, what sorts of things appear in fours in your path? Here are some of the things. The 4 elements. So choose a quarter to represent each of the 4 elements. You got earth, air, fire, water. Generally speaking, it would be, if you were looking at it sort of, the top left would be fire, you'd go down for earth, come across to water, up to air. Is generally how it would fit. Because at the top you've got your hot elements, down the bottom you've got your cold elements, on the left side are your dry elements, on your right side are your wet elements. Fun little trivia fact for you there. The 4 directions. Many pagans place an emphasis on the directions of north, east, south and west, and each of those does at some point eventually end up relating to one of the elements as well. There's the 4 moon phases, so there's the dark moon, the waxing moon, the full moon and the waning moon. The 4 seasons, obviously, the fire feasts and quarter festivals. So the fire festivals or cross-quarter days, Imbolc, Beltane, Lammas and Samhain. Quarter festivals or lesser Sabbats include the solstices and equinoxes, which is interesting because we're talking about Ostara here, but it's not another. Anyway, those are the cross-quarter festivals that they listed there. Okay, so the quarter festivals are Yule, Ostara, Litha and Mabon. Cool. The 4 suits of the tarot, each section can symbolize wands, cups, coins or swords, which again relate to an element, which again relates to the cardinal direction, which again could also relate to a season as well, and each season has its cross-quarter day or its quarter day. So you can really just sort of pick one, and then that's fire, which I think is north. Pretty sure fire is north. It could represent the what do we go here? We'll go with the dark moon, since the moon is like the bright side of the moon at that point is facing the sun and not the earth. Which could represent summer, which would be, what are we looking at there? We'd be looking at Lammas and Litha. Lammas and Litha? Yeah. Which is the wands, for instance. I mentioned the fire ones because we're in fire season at the moment with Aries. So there's that. There's mint chutney, and it gives you a full list there. Ingredients, preparation, roasted lamb. Yum. Deviled eggs. Oof. Ostara peep ambrosia. Ambrosia is one of the easiest desserts ever to make, and when you jazz it up with some pink and yellow peeps, it's even more fun for your Ostara celebration. If you've got extra peeps hanging around the house during spring, this recipe is a great way to use them up. And you can use either the chicks or the bunnies with the peeps. 2 cans of mandarin oranges, 2 cans of pineapple tidbits, 1 jar of maraschino cherries, 2 chopped bananas, 2, I think that's supposed to be cups, shredded coconut flakes, 1 16-ounce tub of cottage cheese, and 1 8-ounce tub of Cool Whip. There's a spring sprout salad with honey mustard dressing. Looks pretty good. Surprise lemon bread. I don't know what the surprise there is, but sure. Among other things, those are the ones that they give. And then we'll finish up here with the crafts for Ostara. I need to go and clean the ears out, they're getting itchy. You could make an Ostara tree, which, that's beautiful. Okay, you will need several lightweight branches, some florist's foam, a flower pot or vase. The picture they've got here has used like an old china jug. It looks beautiful. Some acrylic paints, some Spanish moss, and some small spring decorations. First, paint the pot with spring designs, flowers, butterflies, ladybugs, eggs, etc. If you have kids, it's a lot of fun. If you don't mind them getting a bit messy, let them use thumbprints to make designs, and then allow the paint to dry. Thumbprints makes a great idea, because you could just sort of, and then you've got your egg shape, without having to try and carefully draw an egg shape. You can just egg, done, and then just little line, some dots, done. Cut a chunk of florist foam to fit into the pot, and then insert the branches into the foam so it forms a tree shape. Paint the decorations, whether those are eggs, ribbons, flowers, whatever. On the branches, use salt dough and cookie cutters to make ornaments to hang if you like. Use the Spanish moss to cover the florist's foam on top of the pot. Place your tree on your altar during ritual, or use it as a tabletop decoration. So if you're throwing an Easter party, this might also be an excellent thing to do with the kids, as well as obviously doing the good old tried and true Easter egg hunt. Tie-dyeing some eggs, we all know how to do that. That's a well-known one. I mean, they don't even give an instructions here because we don't know how to do that. No, yes they do, they just give it another. Make a miniature greenhouse. So you need a disposable baking pan with clear plastic lid, some small peat pots, some potting soil, and some seeds. And I've got the full thing there. Magical crystal Ostara eggs. You will need a cup of all-purpose flour, half cup of salt, half cup of clean sand, 1 cup of used coffee grounds, 3/4 of a cup of warm water, some crystals or gemstones, some non-stick cooking spray, and acrylic paints. This one's got a nice short little blend: flour, salt, sand and coffee grounds together. Gradually add the water and knead until you've got a thick gritty dough. Spray a crystal lightly with non-stick cooking spray, then place it in the center of a small scoop of dough. Shape the dough around the crystal to form an egg shape. Bake them at 350 for about 15 minutes. Allow to cool. Once they've cooled, they should be nice and hard like a rock. Paint the eggs and allow to dry. Hide the eggs on Ostara and let your kids crack them open to reveal the hidden crystals. That sounds really cool. Hide those as well as some chocolate eggs so they can have a snack to have while they find out what crystals they got. And then it's kind of like Christmas. Spring weather station, an outdoor thermometer, a notebook or journal, clear straight neck glass bottle, clear glass jar, some rubber bands, food colouring, water, plastic ruler, some clear waterproof tape, a glass jar with a wide bottom, 1 quart jar works well, they've got here, some craft foam, ribbons or gimp string, and a paper clip. Watch the temperature, changes in the air, raindrops, the wind, some seed packet greeting cards as well. Like there's a whole heap you can do. Natural egg dyes, so you can use things like beetroot, blueberry, red wine, coffee, parsley, spinach, red cabbage. Although from the picture they've got here, the red wine gives a nicer purple than red cabbage. They've got a full list here of what colours you might want. So for red or pink, some paprika is another idea. Purple, some concentrated grape juice. Yellow, the skins of half a dozen yellow onions. For gold, some curry powder or turmeric. For beige, some coffee grounds. Light green, some chopped spinach, frozen chopped spinach. Blue, 1 cup of frozen blueberries with juice. You could also make a spring snake wreath, which looks really cool. So you'll need a grapevine hoop or other wreath foam, some spring greenery such as ivy, a bag of rubber snakes, a hot glue gun, florist wire, and some ribbon. And that's all they've got on this page, but I'm sure you could look up some other things, or you might come up with another idea for yourself that sort of fits in. If you're into something like cosplay, you might decide to make some rabbit ears. I'm sure it's not hard to put some wire in rabbit ear shapes on a hairband and sew some rabbit ears onto it, sort of thing. It's just another idea off the top of my head. Making a pom-pom, make a white pom-pom by making a circle, just doing the thing with the wool till you get to a certain part, and then tying that off and making the pom-pom out of it for a tail. A very easy rabbit costume, just there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I have left a lot for you guys to read, but we're getting up there in time, so I'm going to leave it there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Please ring the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. Again, link is in the description. Please comment down below what was your favourite craft, what was your favourite food, how do you celebrate Ostara, or Easter. Easter's just around the corner, so how do you celebrate? And until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.